Thank you. Director Bernstein is absent. Director Jones.
Here.
Director Crawley.
Present.
Director Solano is not present, and Director McLaughlin.
Present. Why don't we go ahead and do the pledge to the flag and hope that Chuck joins us momentarily. So please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to
To the republic
for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There were no, our closed meeting is still ongoing, so there's nothing to report at this time. Michelle, are there any public comments?
If anybody has any public comment, please raise your hand or press *9 if you called in. Seeing none, we have no public comment.
All right, Chief, that brings us to your monthly report.
Thank you, Director McLaughlin. I did notice that under the panelists, I don't see Director Bernstein, but I do see him under a attendee. I'm not sure how he ended up on that side. Maybe
Michelle, could you
Yeah,
work with them to bring him in?
I will.
Thank you. Once you go ahead, Chief, I presume that Director Bernstein can hear.
Very good. A few things to report. We, as a county EMS system, we received an award for the San Mateo County First Responders, and it's from the American Heart Association, the Lifeline EMS Team's Gold Award. Basically, it recognizes exceptional performance of the EMS system relative to STEMI, and STEMI is an ST elevation myocardial infarction, which is a type of heart attack known to be the most severe type. And basically, it says that our people in the field are doing a wonderful job with the STEMI stroke and cardiac arrest. And just kudos to the JPA, the system that we are in, and our first responders. It's nice to receive an award. They work hard out there and they do a great job. Wanted to share that with you. Update on deployments. All of our strike team engines are back. And as of the time that this packet went out, we still had a strike team leader out. That strike team leader is back. So no one is out on deployment at this time. We were out for quite some time with one engine and did multiple crew rotations. So hopefully we've seen the worst of the wildfire season for the year. That is yet to be seen. Hazard mitigation plan. I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention that it has been turned in to the county and subsequently to the state. Once the state issues an approval pending adoption, it'll be brought back to the board for a final approval. And that will happen before December 20th. So I'll advise you when we receive word back that the board can approve that. I did receive a very nice letter from Tom Pressing from ADAPT. I believe a couple of the directors were in attendance at the September 11th drill, and they sent us a very nice letter, basically thanking us for participating. We provided Engine 3 and the crew, drone operations, Chief Navarro, and a CERT instructor. And as I understand it, everything went very well. And it was nice of Mr. Pressing to send us a letter. And the last item is the Management Audit Rfp. We've revised the RFP. It has been back to the Strategic Planning Committee. We took their comments, added them into the RFP, and it is ready for distribution. Just wanted to give the board a heads up that that was going to be happening. Any question on the chief report?
Chief, I just want to take a moment and recognize Tom Pressing's work. I know he's done it for many years, and it's my understanding he's stepping down. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge, his years of service and all the fine work that he's done on behalf of the residents of our community.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Mike or comments on the chief's report?
Congratulations, Mike. Tell the crew on their award that they got. It sounds like it's a fantastic honor to receive that particular award. It seemed like they were working very hard.
Yeah, they definitely they work hard. They do great service out there. They do great work, and our EMS division is very strong. So thank you, Director. I'll make sure I convey that to the troops.
Mike, also, if you could thank the firefighters who went out to fight the wildfires. I know that we had 4 strike teams out from San Mateo County at one point, and a number of our crew out there too. Thank them for their hard work. I mean, it was definitely a difficult thing to do. Long, hard work. I actually was out, I was deployed by the Red Cross, as you know, to deal with sheltering. And I mean, I had a hard time. I can't imagine what they went through. So please thank them for us.
I will. It's a lot of hard work and in quite austere conditions, as you saw. So I will definitely relay that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Stephen Miller, I believe you're up next.
Thank you, Director McLaughlin. Good evening, directors. I often forego my general counsel's report, but there is something to report this evening, and I have a very short PowerPoint that I'm going to try and share my screen, which I hope will work. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. So as you know, we are operating under a governor's executive order, which allows us to meet via Zoom without following the normal Brown Act rules for teleconference meetings. Last week, the legislature adopted AB 361, which actually codifies into the Brown Act certain rules in this regard. The governor signed it the day after the recall election last week, and then yesterday stayed its implementation until October 1st, when his executive order expires. So these new rules now will live in the Brown Act beginning on October 1st. And essentially, the new rules in the Brown Act, without the need for the governor's executive order, allows for the continued flexibility with regards to teleconferencing rules. Specifically, there's no need to post an agenda or invite the public to participate at each teleconference location. And that rule basically makes a meeting like this on Zoom possible. These new rules will apply when 2 things are true. One is the governor has declared a state of emergency, and 2, and it's sort of an odd, but well, predictably odd bit of legislative drafting, quote, social and local, state or local officials have recommended social distancing measures. There is an alternative if there's no state or local officials, whereby the board itself could adopt some findings. But as I'll say in a second, I don't think we need to concern ourselves with that alternative. And then as long as those things exist, those 2 factors exist, agencies can meet under flexible teleconference rules so long as they adopt findings justifying the need for teleconference meetings within 30 days of the first teleconference meeting, and then every 30 days thereafter. So what does this mean for the district? It means that beginning on October 1st, when these rules go into effect, there's no need to do anything but continue to hold Zoom meetings if you so desire, because the governor's state of emergency declaration is still in effect. And there are numerous state and local officials that are continuing to recommend physical distancing requirements in certain circumstances. So beginning with the first meeting, which I think in October, as I see the calendar, will be a committee meeting, within 30 days of that date, the board will need to adopt findings indicating that it's reconsidered the state of emergency and that one or both of the following 2 factors exist. The state of emergency impairs the ability of the board to meet safely in person, and or state or local officials continue to impose or to recommend measures to promote social distancing. And as long as one of those two things are in effect, the board can continue to meet this indefinitely via Zoom, but it will need to make those findings. And so what that means is that you'll see, I'll work with the chief and with Michelle, beginning with the October board meeting, the board will adopt these two findings that you see, or will be asked to adopt these two findings. And there's no reason, maybe the first time we'll have some discussion and further talk about it, but then if you so wish, it can be a sort of a standing order on consent calendar. Just very briefly, there are quite a lot of, it's a sort of a complicated statute. There are quite a lot of detailed provisions, many of which are already being followed by the district. I'll just mention two. The first is that if there is a disruption to the internet service provided meeting like Zoom, there's now a Brown Act prohibition on taking any action while there is a disruption. And we can discuss that more if you have any questions. And then the other thing, you may not require public comments in advance of the meeting. You must allow for the public to comment on each item on the Zoom call in real time and not in advance. So I would suggest that this is sort of good news that allows you, the board, the discretion to decide when you want to meet in person and when you want to continue to meet via Zoom, taking advantage of these more flexible teleconference rules. And I will work with your staff to agendize the findings so that the district will be in compliance. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Should I leave my presentation up, or you want to see each other? What would you like to see?
Why don't you leave it up while, if there's any questions, Chuck?
Sure.
Stephen, I wanted to ask you about something that our corporate counsel had advised us to do regarding, we're holding board meetings via Zoom. And we were advised to report in our minutes that all board it's almost a quote, all board members reported that they were able to hear, and I don't remember the words after that, but they could hear what was going on. Is there anything, does this affect our minutes or what we say at all, as far as you know?
So that advice you're talking about from your corporate counsel is not reflected in the Brown Act. We do take roll where Michelle establishes two-way communications with each board member. There's no legal obligation, as you suggest, but I would have no objection if you wanted to have as a policy to make sure that you all could hear. I'm not sure when your counsel for your corporation was suggesting that check-in happen and whether it happened multiple times during a meeting or just at the beginning, but I think the district effectively does that through its roll-taking process.
Okay, and let me just add, with regard to the roll taking, I was actually in the meeting when the roll was called and for the Pledge of Allegiance, but for whatever reason, I must have clicked on the wrong link, and I was in the panel. I was among the panelists. So thank you for recognizing that and bringing me into the meeting. But I just wanted to report to Michelle that I was here at the beginning.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions for Stephen? No, thank you for that. We'll be in touch, with you to discuss, our October meeting and, whether we continue in this mode or shift back to regular in-person meetings. All right, we have two items on the consent calendar, approval of the August 11, 2021 board minutes and acceptance of the treasurer's report. Any interest in taking any of those items off? Okay, I get a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar for items 3 and 4.
Is there a second?
just to be clear, Jim, there's more minutes than just that August 11th. There's a whole series of them.
Thank you for that, Chuck.
Right.
I'll just refer to item number 3 as it.
Right.
as it's-
That's why I said items 3 and 4.
Right, I'll second the motion. Any discussion? Michelle, would you call the vote?
Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
Director Solano is absent, and Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, that brings us to item 5, which is approval of the MOU that has been sunshined over the last 30 days. So, Chief, I'll ask you to address that. You're muted, Chief.
Thank you. Yeah, as you stated, the MOU has been sunshined for the past 30 days. It was through the bargaining with the union and with the district. And I believe that at the end of the 30 days, we can have it voted on and become part of the MOA for them. Did you need anything else from me?
No, I don't know if Francine has any input or.
Yeah, so as Chief Schaefer stated, the MOU had sunshine period completed to finish today. So we're bringing before the board the successor MOU that we negotiated with AFSCME. We utilized Kreisberg Law as well as district staff to negotiate with AFSCME. We began negotiations in January. We held 6 meetings with AFSCME, the negotiating team, and brought a TA to their membership on July 26th. The staff report includes the material elements of the tentative agreement that I could review if you'd like me to go over those, as well as the fiscal impact.
If I don't know if there's an interest by any director to have Francine go into a summary. Perhaps not right now, Francine, but if
Sure.
I know you'll be with us. Virginia?
So I'm happy to make a motion to approve the terms of the MOU and a resolution authorizing the fire chief, or in this case, interim fire chief, to execute the MOU with AFSCME and the fire district.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Chuck?
Yeah, I have a discussion. I am going to vote to approve this, but I want to register my displeasure with AFSCME regarding their conduct following our approval of this a month ago. Within 7 days of our approval of this, and I'm not revealing anything that's a confidential matter because these are reported in the minutes of August 17th and August 25th. But within 1 week of us doing this, AFSCME, according to these approved minutes, filed a grievance against the district. And that just doesn't seem to me the way that you behave with respect to the agency you're trying to work with and partner with and so forth. There was a matter of concern. I think that the district was addressing it diligently, and the action to file this grievance resulted in a meeting of the board that probably wasn't necessary. It resulted in the expenditure of funds for our counsel to respond and advise. And it served no purpose whatsoever. It did not result in anything. It really was just sort of a, in my opinion, vacant act of no consequence whatsoever. And it's just something that I just want to register publicly that I think the behavior in this case of whoever was responsible for this, but clearly it was the union and its representatives. I just think they acted in a way that hurt us as board members by having to spend extra time. It hurt the district, the taxpayers of the district, because they had to spend money on this. And again, it was of no consequence or benefit to the union. And we did some things that we didn't need to do. We have a policy, a board policy that does not permit a retroactive agreements. And here we are in the month of September approving something that's retroactive back to January. And there's good, I think, foundation for doing so because negotiations were underway and so forth. But regardless, we did some things, the board did some things that we did not need to do. And we did it out of a sense of goodwill and partnership, and I don't think it was properly reciprocated. I'm speaking entirely for myself here. I don't represent anybody else on the board, but I just wanted to record my dissatisfaction with AFSCME's behavior in this matter.
All right, is there any further discussion on this item? Michelle, would you call a vote, please?
I will, and I'll note for the record, or actually I'll ask if there's any public comment. If you would like to raise your hand or press *9 if you called in. And at a moment, and I do not see any public comments, so I'll do the roll call. Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
and Director Solano is absent. Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, that brings us to item 6, adopting resolution approving the master pay schedule for all classifications. Chief, if you could present that.
Absolutely, Director. I'm going to kick this off to Francine, HR.
Thank you. Good evening, directors. So this is a matter of formality that's required by CalPERS under Government Code Section 20636 that we bring any changes to a salary schedule to a public meeting on an agendized item. So we're bringing forward the changes to the AFSCME salary that will be effective January 1, as well as the minimum wage ordinance through the city of Menlo Park. That was adjusted also as of January 1, and that wasn't brought forward to the board at that time. So we're adding that change as well. That was a 25-cent increase from 15 to 15.25 per hour for 3 of the district's temporary classifications. However, it does not impact any employees because no employees were at that level prior to the change. So I'm available for any questions if anyone has any questions.
Jim?
Yes.
Robert?
Virginia, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to make the motion to adopt a resolution approving the master pay schedule for all classifications.
I'll second that one.
All right, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, Michelle, would you call the vote?
Yes, if there's any public comments, please raise your hand or hit *9. And I see none. I'll continue with roll call. Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Crawley,
Aye.
Director Solano is absent, and Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right, that brings us to item 7, approve a resolution authorizing revised stipend pay provisions for chief officers. So again, Chief, I'll ask you to brief that.
Thank you, Director McLaughlin. So what we're asking for the board tonight is based on the Fire Board's employee compensation policy, and we're trying to ensure transparency and accountability. We're requesting approval to amend the backfill stipend, as we have found that it doesn't correspond with current practice. The backfill stipend really only corresponds in writing with the OES and FEMA deployments. However, we do use that backfill stipend for when battalion chiefs are off for PTO, etc. And so we need to amend the management plan verbiage so that it more aligns with what we actually do. And I would actually like to ask Francine to add anything into that that I may have missed.
That's it. You covered it.
Thank you.
You know, I just want to address this. This was discussed in the HR committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and I'm prepared to support it, but I ask that we begin to collect better data on the accumulation and accrual of these hours so that we can see as a board, you know, what are the activities, what are the work activities that are generating these stipends, so that we can see specifically, you know, how much of it is due to out of county deployments, how much of it is due to backfilling someone for training, absences, whatever the cause may be, so that we, again, can just perform our proper role as an oversight body. So Virginia,
Absolutely, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Virginia, I believe I saw your
Yeah,
hand.
just a quick question, Mike. So I know that these payments or the stipend payments are limited to deployments from mutual aid. So when Jim talks about out of county, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that these stipend payments would be for those who were deployed to these wildfires across the state. Is that correct?
It
For
is.
officers, right? Like
It is correct. This is only for battalion chief and above.
right. So
Um,
for example, it'd be like Battalion Chief Jason Martin would get this, right?
Correct.
Or
And-
Dan
and
Coyle, for
Dan
example.
Coyle, Ken Babcock, Ben
Right,
Mara,
all-
they've all been out. Actually, Chief Coyle has not been out. But to that end, this is all fully reimbursable when they do go out on those deployments. We'll still supply how much money was spent on those deployments and how much was reimbursed. That's absolutely, we can do that, but that is the one reimbursable portion of this. The rest,
So-
obviously, due to PTO or something, is not reimbursable.
So in terms of mutual aid reimbursements, do we have a breakdown of what would be reimbursable? I mean, like for in-county mutual aid, let's say if there's an increase in like Redwood City Fire, for example, wanting to have, you know, more, well, where we're going on more of their cause, for example, would that be something like that be reimbursable or?
So we don't pay a stipend for that. The county is all dropped borders and automatic
Okay.
aids, so we just all help each other to send the closest unit to the call. Typically, the mutual aid is when you're called out of county, and
Right,
typically this is through Region 2 OES. And we do get 100% reimbursement for what we pay our employees while they're out of county, and the backfill for those that backfill them when they're supposed to be working.
okay.
So we get fully put back together for those deployments that are out of county deployments.
Right, and there's no charge for those, yeah, because of the dropped borders. I just wanted to make
Correct.
sure that's out there, because I just can maybe foresee this situation where we're, you know, providing a subsidy at some point, and I just
No.
want us to be mindful of that.
No, we don't pay any stipends whatsoever to move people throughout the county when we're responding to different calls. And
Okay.
obviously, typically, it's only Redwood City and Woodside if we have a closer rig, and for them coming to us. Has
Or
to be a
CAL
pretty
FIRE.
large, or CAL FIRE, but they're a little farther away, so it'd have to be something a little bigger.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chuck?
Yeah, I would like to suggest that and kind of second the direction that both you, Jim, and Virginia were going in. I think this does bear some review at some point. I'm going to vote to approve it now, but I think it does merit some review. And it took me 5 years to finally understand that this idea that we are 100% reimbursed for this is not in fact true, at least as far as I've learned. It's something that we've said, but what I finally learned by asking 100 questions to get the answer is when we send an invoice to OES or the feds, they reimburse it 100%. So to that extent, we do get reimbursed 100%, but we do not get reimbursed at actual cost. There is a standard cost that's decided by the federal government and the state government for these things. We don't get reimbursed based on what we actually pay people. And to the extent that our agency has a higher pay scale than average, my guess, but it's not supported by any research because the district has not chosen not to research it in the past. We have never looked to see how the reimbursement rates that we receive match up to what we're actually paying people. And we've just never done it. We've never done it on a case history. We haven't done it over a whole year. And I would, if you look at how much higher our pay scales are than those of other agencies, I would seriously doubt that we're fully reimbursed for this. I would guess that there is a subsidy that we are paying to do this, but I don't know, and nobody else knows either. So nobody can argue with me, but I can't prove what I'm saying. I think it does merit investigation at some point.
Chief?
So Director, I will do that investigation because I'm fairly confident that we are reimbursed and we are made whole. So I will respond back to you. I actually think that the reimbursement actually ends up putting us in the black. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I want to make sure I do my homework for you. But in response to Director McLaughlin, during the committee meeting, I believe that we decided that shooting for a fiscal year in July to have the previous year of stipends lined out, and that gives us time to put that together and get a spreadsheet and start tracking that so that we can present that to the board on a fiscal basis. But before that happens in July, I will get the information for you on the FEMA and USAR side of things, because I'm very confident that we are made whole plus, because they also pay an admin fee. And I do believe that we submit a form to them with our hourly wages of our personnel per position. And different departments send all that information in. So I'll get that information to you.
Let me just say, thank you. And I appreciate the effort to get the information, but I think this is going to possibly require the assistance of a consultant or something like that. Because remember, part of the cost of this is our cost back home of overtime for people who are backfilling positions of people who've gone out on call. So it's
All of that is added in.
okay. I would love to see, I would love to see it. I don't want to argue because I'm arguing out of ignorance.
Yeah, and I want to give you the actual numbers, but I've never looked at the spreadsheets, but I definitely have signed the paperwork that goes into the state. When I first got into this position, I believe when I first got into deputy, I was educated really fast on the fact that we put our hourly wages for the positions into the state so they know what to reimburse us. And we do get reimbursed for people that are backfilling those that are out. So I'll get you that information and we can put this to rest.
Thank you. And let me say, I would love to be wrong here too, by the way. So I would welcome it.
Absolutely. Well, the only way we're going to be able to put it to bed is to actually get the information and look at it. So we'll do that.
Virginia?
So just a quick question. So in this case, Mike, this would also include the fire marshal. Is that correct?
The fire marshal does not typically backfill a position.
Right,
he is a
okay.
division chief, but I'm not sure that the fire marshal has ever had a backfill stipend.
Okay, because I think that position is mentioned in here in one of the attachments, attachment B, I think. So but
Yeah,
maybe
this is moreover for
deployment.
and for the 56-hour battalion chiefs when they have to go to a training and they can't fulfill their shift. We have to bring someone in to take on their shift, or if they're on vacation or ill. Francine reads things to a great depth. And when she read this information, she said, it really doesn't line up with what we do. So we got busy putting together a staff report so that we line up with what we do.
Okay, well, I'll approve the resolution authorizing revised stipend pay provisions for chief officers.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'm not sure. I saw both Chuck and Robert.
Robert was
I'll
first.
yield to Chuck.
Robert was first.
Okay, so Robert seconds
I'll take it on.
the motion. Is
Okay.
there any further discussion? Right, any public comment, Michelle?
Thank you. If there's any public comment, please raise your hand or hit *9 if you called in. And it does not look like we have any public comments.
All right, Michelle, would you please call the vote?
Will do. Director Bernstein,
Aye.
Director Jones. Director Jones? Oh,
Aye.
thank you. Director Crawley.
Aye.
I've noted Director Solano is absent and Director McLaughlin.
Aye. All right. Brings us to item number 8. Approve a resolution authorizing a temporary upgrade assignment for the position of for the position of Division Chief of Operations. Chief?
Thank you, Director. So this is based on what we're currently doing. Since I am serving in the interim position, we have an acting deputy chief, and then we brought in an acting division chief of operations. And the deputy chief vacated a division chief spot, so we were able to bring in the operations division for the time that I'm in the interim chief position. Moving forward, for operational structure, for accountability, for higher consistency of a level of service, and also for succession planning, we feel it's important to have this operations position in place when we do find our new fire chief. So when you find a new fire chief, that person is put on board. I would move back to the deputy. The acting deputy would move back to the division, and the operations chief would not have an FTE. So what we're asking for this evening is a 6-month temporary upgrade assignment that has a beginning date and an end date, so that as a new chief comes in, we do have a operations chief in place for the reasons that I already stated. And if the new chief chooses to ask the board to extend that, or if the new chief chooses to terminate that at their leisure, that's up to them. We just want to set that new chief up for success and have the positions filled that we feel will be beneficial to their success.
All right, thank you for that. I just want to point out that this item was presented to the HR committee, and its approval has the support of the HR committee. So
Thank you, Director.
Any questions or comments for the chief?
It's a great idea, Chief.
Thank you, Director.
Great idea. So I'll make a motion. You need a motion? Nobody have any comments? I'll make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing a temporary upgrade assignment for the position of Division Chief of Operations.
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any public comment, Michelle?
If there's any public comment, please raise your hand or hit *9 if you called in. And I do not see any public comments.
All right, please call a vote.
Director Bernstein?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Crawley?
Aye.
Director Solano, I'll note is absent, and Director McLaughlin.
Aye.
Thank you, directors.
All right, item 9. We have an informational report on COVID-19 policies and presumption for firefighters. Chief?
Yes, so this was requested by Director Bernstein. Melanie, our EMS manager, put this together based on his request. She is on the line if there are any questions that arise from what you've read here. Basically it gives background and then shows the current, current events that take place within the district and what we have set up through Cal OSHA and county health as to what we do based on someone's exposure, whether they're vaccinated, non-vaccinated, whether they have symptoms, don't have symptoms. We have created a flow chart that we've updated throughout the pandemic and is currently working pretty well for us. We were all wishing we weren't still having to use it right now, but every now and again, we do have to refer to it. Did you have any questions for our EMS manager?
Chuck?
I do have a question. Is Melanie able to respond? Okay, good. Thank you. Good evening. In terms of the background bullet points here, I'm a little confused by the wording of the last two bullet points regarding a quarantine. And typically the word quarantine, I know, is supposed to apply to an exposure. Whereas if somebody actually has COVID, there's a different word is used. But so this relates to being exposed, but it's not clear to me from this wording if we, in general, there's a different rule if someone is vaccinated and they typically do not have to quarantine with an exposure, and when somebody is not vaccinated, in which case they do have to quarantine. Could you clarify the difference between a vaccinated person and unvaccinated with respect to quarantine?
Absolutely. So are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes.
You sound great, Melanie. Thank you.
Thank you. So the difference is if the person is vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and they are exposed to COVID-19, or actually just the exposure piece in this case, they are not required to quarantine because they are fully vaccinated. Now, if somebody is not vaccinated and they are exposed, that is when we do require a quarantine period. And this is following CDC, Cal OSHA, and San Mateo County EMS agency guidelines as well.
Okay, that was my understanding for the public at large and other businesses and so forth, but somehow the wording here just wasn't clear. It just wasn't clear to me that that's the case. So if somebody in a firehouse came down with COVID, the other people who were living there, if they were vaccinated, they do not need to quarantine. They can continue to work without restriction. I mean, there's still the restrictions of being masked indoors and things like that, but they don't have to quarantine. But anybody who was not vaccinated would have to quarantine in that firehouse.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Melanie.
Any other questions for the chief or Melanie?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
On the very last page, page 3 of the report itself, the second to last bullet point, first of all, maybe you could explain what the word rebuttable presumption, what does rebuttable mean? That you could argue against it if you had a reason for it?
Correct. That means, with the presumptive status, which is fairly new for COVID, it is required by us to just presume that if a firefighter catches COVID-19, that they did get it from work, and there is that possibility that they can that the district can rebut it, but it becomes very difficult as it is now in law that COVID-19 is considered presumptive illness.
That's different than with, say, cancer, for example. Cancer would be a non-rebuttable presumption.
So, Melanie, would you mind if I brought Francine into this
I would love that. Yeah, because I know that
conversation?
she
Because this is
absolutely.
probably a little more in her lane.
I agree. Yes.
So, thank you. So, so the rebuttable presumption is basically if someone is contracts COVID and believes it was contracted through the course of work and is a first responder. There is a presumption for non-first responders, but this one is for first responders. Then we would go through our we would put the employee on 4850, but we would go through our workers' comp process to vet to make sure that it was in fact basically incurred or contracted through the course of work. So what rebuttable means is if we can prove otherwise that it was not contract through the course of work, then it wouldn't be a presumption anymore. If we could not prove otherwise, then it would be a presumption.
Okay, but please answer then the next one also. That's different than with, say, cancer. Is that correct? Cancer is always presumed to be work-related?
So there's certain types of cancers, true, that are always presumed to be workers' comp or work-related. And there are other cancers that are not always presumed.
I see.
Yeah.
So for just as an example, I mean, if a firefighter got COVID and it turned out that a couple people in the household also had COVID, that you could perhaps presume that it was the family that was the cause of it and not the firehouse.
Exactly. What our workers' comp carrier typically would do is they'll go through the contract tracing to determine who the employee was exposed to, maybe calls that they went on, exactly like you said, family members. So it could be that someone's daughter brought it home from school, and then it wouldn't be presumptive because we would be able to prove it. But if we're not able to prove otherwise, then it is presumptive.
And
So
just
the burden is on the employer.
let me ask you about the contract tracing. Do you do that within house, or do you rely on the county to do that for you?
So we rely on if it's for 4850 workers' comp. If it's covered in workers' comp, our workers' comp carrier does that. I know Melanie also does contact tracing, and then the county does as well for positive COVIDs. But we don't rely on the county for the presumption for workers' comp.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Francine.
Sure.
Any further questions on this matter? Well, Chief, thank you. Melanie, thank you. Francine, thank you for a very informative presentation. Michelle, do we have any public comment?
Or any public comments? Please raise your hand or hit *9 if you called in. And I do not see any public comments.
Thank you. All right, committee reports. I'll go first. I believe I noted the items before the HR committee, this month's HR committee meetings. I'll move to finance. Chuck?
We did not have a finance committee meeting this week. We had hoped to meet with a consultant, Bartels, to discuss options regarding the problem we have with our survivor benefit, but for whatever reason, Bartels chose not to attend the meeting, and we were not able to reschedule it. So we did not have a meeting, but the one item was carried over till next, the investment policy was carried over to the next meeting, and the other item was approved on the consent calendar, the treasurer's report.
All right, thank you. And in Rob's absence, you have did the strategic planning committee meet?
Well, as was in the chief's report, we reviewed the draft of the Management Audit RFP. Rob gave some suggestions, I gave some suggestions, and as the chief reported, that proposal, and we've got, by the way, that Rob's suggestions included a kind of some additional potential proposers. And so we have, the district staff has also gotten some, before I think we had 4 people that we sent it to, and we didn't get really a responsive proposal back. But now I think we have perhaps 10 potential and maybe more at this point. So I'm very hopeful that with both a clarified RFP and with a larger pool of potential respondents, that we will get several good proposals. And I'm looking forward as a member of the committee as is Rob, to reviewing those when they come in. As I understand, well, that should be in the next month to 2 months that we'll be dealing with that. That's the only item that was on our agenda.
Great, thank you for that. Virginia, anything from the E-Prep committee?
Yeah, thank you. Basically, the update from Constant Associates which is the firm that we've engaged to deal with the independent review of the OEM, is that they are interviewing stakeholders still. And I know that some people who in the public realm have been interviewed, or Constant Associates is in the process of doing that. So that was a big update. Tom Pressing gave an update about ADAPT, and we had other updates as well from Lynn Bramlett from MPC Ready and Dennis Parker from REPEC. But I just wanted to focus on Tom because it was the last meeting that we had before his drill in Atherton. And so I want to thank him for doing that drill, which had about, I want to say 150 to 250 people from different parts of the county. And it was very, very successful. And I think a lot of people felt engaged and that they learned a lot and kind of learned from the first responders as well. I mean, I think the crew from Station 3 was out there. So I think it was Randy Kelly, who was the captain on duty at that time. He also kind of taught some of the residents or some of us who were in the exercise. And so, Mike, if you can impart that message to Randy Kelly and his crew that day, September 11th, that would be great. I know that a lot of the residents that I've heard from appreciated the fact that the firefighters were out there teaching, but also even I think Tom Owens was there with his drone. So they were appreciative of that. I think some people had not really seen what we could do with drones, and so they were very happy to see that. I was proud to participate as a CERT and a ham radio operator, and I just want everyone to know that the residents are taking preparedness very seriously. So I hope that the fire district will support what they're doing, because I think it's very useful. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Liaison. Chuck?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Virginia said, not as a committee report, but as a board member and as a CERT member. I was delighted to know that the district participated, and really in a significant way, where it was apparent that there was support there and so forth. I think that's very positive. I believe it's a change, actually, a change for the better. So thank you, Chief, for authorizing or encouraging or whatever you did to get that kind of support there.
You're welcome, Director. And I have to give kudos where kudos are due. Obviously, those that went out, but Ryan and Andres were both going to be out of town for that. They did a significant amount of work prior to them leaving town to make sure everything was set up for the town to have the proper engine and people there to help them out. So Ryan and Andres definitely made that happen, even though they weren't going to be here. So I appreciate everything they did for that.
Right.
Thank you.
Very good. That brings us to liaison reports. Any reports?
I have something from Atherton. Again, going back to that drill, there were a couple of council members there, and they actually participated, actually three, including Mayor Elizabeth Lewis, and they were happy to participate in the drill. But at that time, I had a brief conversation with Councilwoman Diana Hawkins Manuelian, and I think she wants our help with their communications exercise, which I think is going to happen in the fall. So Chief, I'll probably come to you with some questions, and maybe with Councilwoman Hawkins Manuelian as well. I think for her and for other Atherton residents, the communications piece is very important to them. They're concerned about their canopy and how that might impede and interfere with communication. So they want to do, or at least she does, and I think there's support from their council to do a drill like that for communications purposes.
They're on the radar. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other liaison reports? All right, reports, requests of directors. Chuck?
Jim, I just, before you go out of town, I just wanted to inquire. I know there was an item that was supposed to be on the HR committee that did not make the agenda, involving the reviewing the idea of requiring vaccinations of our staff. You mentioned that you were going to try to get it on the agenda for the next meeting, but you weren't going to be here for the next meeting. So I was wondering if you've had a chance to address that.
Well, I'll be present for the October board meeting. Of course, I will not be present for the NHR committee meeting in October.
Will there be a committee meeting?
I would have to refer to our protocols. In my absence, I don't know if as a vice president, if you're able to step in my stead. I don't know if that's addressed in our protocols. Stephen, do you know offhand?
I believe the protocols state that the vice president just assumes all of the duties of the president. So the answer to your question is yes.
There is a section in the board policy manual that addresses this. So I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can let you know after the meeting.
Okay, if you notify both, Chuck and myself, and Chuck, I say if you have the authority to convene, the HR committee meeting in my absence, then that'd be your prerogative.
Well, let me just then ask the question, only because the proposal that's at least in part under discussed, it would be discussed, is my own, and it feels a little bit like a conflict of interest for. I'm willing to attend the meeting, but it feels a little uncomfortable with me kind of advocating for my own proposal at the meeting. So I was going to ask if there's any other board member who's not on the HR committee who would be willing to attend and participate in a discussion of that proposal.
Virginia?
I can, if you want, because I was going to bring something to the HR committee too that I think may be more appropriate in terms of timing now, and I don't want to get into that until Chuck's done, but because I'm going to bring a proposal, I could be at that meeting. It's not a proposal. It's basically some of the changes from the chief's job description, which we talked about a few months ago. But I think now is probably a better time to bring this forward than before.
Okay, well then maybe if I am acting in Jim's stead, Michelle or who is the liaison to the HR? Oh, obviously
Myself and
Francine
Rob.
is the liaison though. So I would like to make sure that does make the agenda, and I'll then talk to you, Virginia, about substituting for Jim at that committee meeting. If if
And of
that's,
course, that'll be contingent upon our board policy, provided.
Right.
that it's
course.
allowed.
I have the board policy in front of me. Did you want me to read from it now, or do you just want me to
Sure.
email
No,
it?
if it speaks to this issue, please go ahead.
Okay, so it says the board may designate an alternate standing committee member to attend meetings when a regularly appointed member is unable to attend. The alternate may participate fully in the meeting and vote on agenda items. However, if any alternate member attends a standing committee meeting, he or she shall not engage in any fact-finding with the standing committee member who is unable to attend the meeting to determine the member's opinion on a given action item. In addition, he or she shall not discuss committee business with any other board member other than as permitted during regularly scheduled meetings of the full board. And that's it.
All right, well, thank you for that. So Chuck, it sounds like, that you have the authority to proceed along those lines if you wish.
okay. And just to be clear then, Virginia, I won't discuss anything about that proposal. It will speak for itself. And then you wouldn't discuss anything with Jim's opinion of it either.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
All right, very good. Any other reports or requests?
So Jim, I'm gonna bring, so what's the best way for me to submit my changes to the chief's job description? I mean, because this is something that we as a board decided that would happen a few months ago, or well, probably not, about a month or so ago. And again, I think this is the better timing for me to do that. I mean, I could just submit it to the HR committee and attend and, be present for that item, unless y'all want to do it further out. But I think
No,
this might be a better time to do it.
Yeah, I think you'd have the prerogative. I know the board adopted a revised job description for the chief's position, and any revision to that can be brought up at any time. So if you
Well,
want
yes,
to-
and I think the board voted that I would bring forth my changes to the HR committee.
I believe that's correct. So again, you'd have the freedom to do that at the October HR.
Okay.
meeting.
I'll
So,
do that then, thanks.
right. Any other items? My president's report. I was approached by a citizen of Menlo Park regarding installation of a piece of public art at Station 4. I think it deserves consideration, and I've elected to put together an ad hoc committee. I asked Chuck if he would serve on it with me. I know Chuck has a lot of experience, apparently through his spouse in this area. So I think he would have a lot to offer. I've asked the chief to include whatever staff members he thinks would be appropriate for this. It's my intent. I've already reached out to the at least one public funding source, and there's been the suggestion of a public donation. It would be my objective to pursue this without the use of district funds, to try to secure donations or grant through one of the many grant making bodies that support art in public locations. So our first meeting will be October 19th, and I will keep the board apprised on progress. All right, if there's nothing further, Michelle, is there any public comment?
If we have any public comments, please raise your hand or hit *9 if you called in. And I do not see any public comments.
All right, well, thank you. Is there we'll adjourn our meeting upon a motion now, but we'll resume our closed session. I see it's 8:07, and I see I know at least one member needs to to travel, to get to another location. So why don't we reconvene the closed session at 8:30? It gives us time for a little break, and everybody should have the link to get back into the closed session. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're not, excuse me, you're not actually adjourning this meeting. You're just moving back into closed session.
Thank you for that.
Oh, okay, so we don't have to adjourn the open session then, right?
So
Steve?
we would go back into open session at the
After the-
conclusion of
yeah,
close.
okay,
Is that
perfect.
correct? And
I
then
got it.
adjourn at that time?
That's correct. You're just taking looks like a 20-minute pause.
Thank you.
All right, very good. All
Do we
right,
need to leave this meeting and go back to using the first link that we received for closed session?
Yes, you do.
Thank you, Michelle.
You bet.
all right, I'll see you all in closed session at 8:30.
Thank you.